Have you ever laid down at night feeling completely exhausted? Your eyes feel heavy after a long day. Your body seems ready to finally rest. But the moment you settle into bed, something feels different. A strange sensation begins to appear for no obvious reason. You can't quite explain it, but you know it's there. And once you notice it, it becomes difficult to ignore. Maybe you shift positions, hoping the feeling will disappear. Maybe you turn onto one side, searching for relief. Maybe you adjust your pillow for the third or fourth time, and for a brief moment, everything seems to improve. Your body feels calmer, your breathing feels more comfortable. Then somehow the sensation quietly returns again. It's not exactly pain, it's not exactly discomfort, it's simply a feeling that something inside your body isn't settling the way it should. And if you're over 60, doctors say this experience may have far less to do with sleep itself than most people realize. In fact, it may be connected to something happening while your brain is trying to enter its deepest recovery state. But here's where things become surprisingly interesting, because what causes this feeling is not what most people think. You may have noticed this pattern more times than you can count. It often begins the moment your body finally slows down. Throughout the day, you may feel exhausted and ready for rest, but once you lie down, something suddenly changes. Your chest suddenly feels more noticeable than it did before. Your breathing seems different, even if nothing has actually changed. Your awareness becomes sharper in ways that are difficult to explain. And this is where many people begin questioning what they're feeling. Your body feels tired enough to sleep, yet your mind doesn't seem fully convinced that it's time to switch off. Small sensations that went unnoticed during the day suddenly feel amplified. The rhythm of your heartbeat appears easier to notice. A mild pressure may appear in certain positions. A strange awareness may develop in your shoulders, chest, or neck. Nothing feels severe enough to cause alarm, yet something feels different enough to keep pulling your attention back. You tell yourself you're probably overthinking it, so you shift slightly and try another position. Sometimes you roll onto one side, sometimes you adjust the blanket or pillow. Sometimes you stretch your legs and wait for the sensation to fade. And strangely enough, it often does. For a few minutes, everything feels comfortable again. Then the same feeling slowly begins creeping back. You may have experienced the urge to move without understanding why. Not because you're fully awake, not because you're uncomfortable enough to get out of bed, but because your body seems to be searching for something. A position that feels more natural, a position that feels more stable, a position that somehow feels easier to remain in. And most people never stop to ask why this keeps happening. Think about how many times you've adjusted your position during the night, how many times you've turned over without even remembering it, how many mornings you've woken up feeling like your sleep was somehow incomplete. You slept for hours, yet you didn't wake up feeling fully restored. You followed the same routine, you went to bed at the same time, but the quality of your sleep seemed to change for reasons you couldn't explain. And the strangest part is that these experiences often follow a pattern so subtle that most people dismiss it completely. They assume it's simply part of getting older. They assume everyone feels this way at night. But your body rarely creates repeated signals without a reason. And when the same sensations continue appearing night after night, they may be pointing towards something deeper, something that becomes much easier to understand once you see what connects them all. And this is where things start becoming surprisingly confusing, because if this were simply a matter of sleeping position, the answer would be easy. Everyone would benefit from the exact same advice. The same posture would work for every person. The same adjustments would create the same results. And yet, that isn't what people experience in real life. In fact, the opposite seems to happen, and that's what caught the attention of many sleep specialists. For some people, sleeping on the left side feels noticeably better. Their breathing feels easier, their body feels calmer. They wake up feeling more refreshed. The night seems smoother and less interrupted. Small discomforts appear to fade away. Everything seems to improve, at least for a while. But for others, that exact same position creates an entirely different experience. The pressure feels stronger, the urge to move appears more often, sleep feels lighter and less satisfying. They find themselves changing positions throughout the night. They wake up more frequently without understanding why, and by morning they feel like they never fully rested, even though they spent enough time in bed. Think about how strange that really is. The same habit, the same mattress, the same goal of getting quality sleep, yet completely different outcomes. One person feels relief, another person feels discomfort. One person sleeps through the night, another wakes up feeling exhausted. So what explains the difference? Most people assume the position itself must be the answer. They spend months trying different sleeping techniques, different pillows, different mattresses, different routines, always searching for the perfect setup. And while those things can certainly matter, they don't fully explain what's happening, because the position itself may not be the real issue. What doctors began noticing was something far more interesting. The body's response seemed to matter more than the position itself. In other words, two people could sleep in the exact same way, yet their bodies could react completely differently. And that reaction appeared to influence what happened during the night, including how often they moved, how deeply they slept, and how restored they felt the next morning. Once researchers started looking beyond the position itself, a hidden pattern began to emerge, a pattern that connected many of the symptoms people had been experiencing for years. The pressure, the restlessness, the constant adjustments, the unexplained awakenings, even the feeling that something wasn't quite right. And when they identified what might be driving those reactions, the entire picture started to change. Because what happens next may have less to do with sleep than most people imagine. I'm Dr. William Harris, a sleep specialist, and over the years I've had countless conversations with adults over 60 who describe remarkably similar experiences. Many arrive convinced that their sleep has somehow become broken. They believe something is malfunctioning inside their body. They assume the problem is simply a consequence of getting older. And after struggling night after night, that conclusion can feel understandable. But what I've observed repeatedly tells a very different story, and that's where this discussion becomes particularly important. What fascinates me is how often people describe the same pattern using different words. One person talks about pressure, another talks about restlessness, someone else describes a sensation they can't fully explain. Yet underneath those descriptions, the experience is often surprisingly similar. The body feels tired, the mind wants to rest, but something seems to keep interrupting the process, and most people never realize what may actually be happening. Many assume the issue starts in the brain. Others believe it's simply stress. Some blame their mattress. Some blame their age. Some blame themselves for not sleeping the way they used to. But when you look closely at the experiences people describe, another possibility begins to emerge. A possibility that often goes unnoticed because the signals are so subtle, and because those signals usually appear when people are least likely to pay attention. The interesting thing is that these reactions often happen quietly. There is no dramatic warning sign, no obvious event that demands attention. Instead, the body makes small adjustments throughout the night, tiny reactions that may seem insignificant on their own. A shift in position, a brief awakening, a subtle feeling of discomfort. Yet, over time, those small events can begin to affecting the quality of recovery taking place during sleep. And this is why so many people become confused. They know they spent hours in bed, they know they technically slept, yet they still wake up feeling less restored than they expected. Their energy feels different, their focus feels different, their mornings feel different, and they can't identify a clear reason why, because the source of the problem is often operating beneath conscious awareness. What makes this especially fascinating is that the body may not be working against you at all.
In many cases, it may actually be trying to help. The signals people experience may be part of a protective response, a response designed to maintain balance during the night. But when that response becomes too active, it can begin creating unintended consequences. And understanding that hidden reaction may explain why so many nighttime sensations seem connected. Because this isn't random, as most people assume. Because this isn't random, and your body is not malfunctioning. In fact, that assumption may be one of the biggest reasons people misunderstand what they're experiencing. Most people assume that every uncomfortable sensation during the night is a problem, something that needs to be eliminated, something that shouldn't be happening at all. But the body rarely operates without a purpose, and that's where the story begins to change. Many of the sensations that seem frustrating at night may actually start as protective responses, small signals designed to attract your attention, subtle adjustments intended to maintain balance while you sleep, tiny biological reactions working behind the scenes. Most of the time, these responses happen automatically. You don't consciously trigger them, you don't consciously control them, and often you don't even realize they're happening.
Think about how quickly your body reacts during the day. If something feels uncomfortable, you adjust. If something feels unstable, you reposition yourself. If something feels off, your body responds before you fully think about it. The same thing can happen at night, except now the signals are quieter, more subtle, and much easier to overlook. The interesting part is that these reactions are not necessarily signs of failure. They may actually be evidence that your body is still paying attention, still monitoring, still making small corrections while you sleep. The problem begins when those corrections become too frequent, when the body starts sending repeated signals throughout the night, signals that continuously pull your system away from deeper recovery. And most people never connect those interruptions to how they feel the next day. You may not fully wake up every time it happens. You may not remember shifting positions. You may not remember the brief moments when your body reacts, but your brain experiences those interruptions differently. Each adjustment can create a small disruption in the restorative processes occurring beneath the surface, processes that help support memory, mental clarity, and overnight recovery. And here's the thing that surprises many people. The sensations themselves may not be the real problem. They may simply be clues, visible signs pointing towards something deeper happening underneath, something influencing the way your body responds during the night, something that helps explain why the same patterns keep repeating over and over again. And once researchers started looking beneath those signals, they uncovered a mechanism most people have never heard of before. What you're feeling is something I call a night mismatch. A night mismatch occurs when your body and your sleeping position stop working together as efficiently as they should. Nothing dramatic has to happen for this process to begin. Nothing dangerous needs to be present. There doesn't have to be a major health problem. In many cases, the imbalance is extremely subtle, just enough for your body to notice that something isn't quite right, and that small detail changes everything. Most people assume comfort is simply about finding the right position, but your body is constantly evaluating much more than comfort. It's monitoring pressure, it's monitoring movement, it's monitoring breathing patterns, it's monitoring balance and stability throughout the night. These adjustments happen automatically, and they often occur without your awareness. When a night mismatch develops, your body may respond with what I call a body flip signal. The body flip signal is not something you consciously create. It's an internal message generated beneath conscious awareness, a message designed to encourage adjustment, a message intended to restore a better state of balance. And because it happens automatically, most people never realize it's occurring. They simply react to the sensation it creates, without understanding what triggered it in the first place. Sometimes the signal appears as a sudden urge to turn over. Sometimes it feels like pressure building in a certain position. Sometimes it creates a feeling of restlessness that seems impossible to explain.
Sometimes it feels as though your body simply cannot settle completely. You know something feels different, but you can't clearly identify why. And because the sensation is difficult to describe, many people dismiss it, even when it continues happening night after night. Think about how often you've changed positions without making a conscious decision. One moment you're lying still, the next moment you're turning onto your side, adjusting your shoulders, moving your legs, repositioning your pillow. The movement feels automatic, almost as if your body made the decision before your mind did. And in many cases, that's exactly what happened. And this is what makes the body flip signal so fascinating. The signal itself isn't necessarily the problem. It's the body's attempt to solve what it perceives as an imbalance. The challenge is that repeated signals can create repeated interruptions that occur quietly throughout the night, interruptions most people never remember the next morning. Yet those reactions may influence far more than simple comfort. Because once a night mismatch begins triggering these signals repeatedly, another chain of events may start unfolding beneath the surface. Think about how many times you've experienced something like this during the night. You wake up briefly without knowing exactly why. You switch positions almost automatically. Within moments, you begin feeling slightly better. The pressure seems to ease. Your body feels calmer. Your breathing feels smoother. And for a while, everything appears to return to normal. Sometimes the sensation shows up as mild reflux. Sometimes it's a feeling of pressure in the chest. Sometimes it's discomfort in one shoulder that wasn't noticeable before. Other times it's a vague sensation that something feels off. Not painful, not alarming, just noticeable enough to keep drawing your attention back to it. And that's what makes these experiences so confusing.
You may have noticed that certain positions feel easier than others. One side seems comfortable, the other somehow feels different. Breathing may seem smoother in one position, more restricted in another. The change can be subtle, yet your body reacts as though the difference matters. And most people never stop to ask why. They simply keep adjusting throughout the night. Then there are the nights when you simply can't stay still. You settle down, a few minutes pass, you move again. You find another position, you wait, then eventually you move once more. The pattern repeats itself over and over, and because the movements feel normal, they rarely seem important, at least not at first. What makes these experiences interesting is that they often appear unrelated. Reflux seems unrelated to shoulder discomfort. Pressure seems unrelated to restlessness. Breathing changes seem unrelated to frequent position changes. Yet in many cases, they may all be connected through the same underlying pattern, a pattern involving how the body responds when it detects a night mismatch. And that response often begins with the body flip signal, a signal most people never realize is influencing their behavior. The reason this matters is because the body flip signal doesn't simply affect comfort. Its influence may extend much further than that. Every adjustment, every repositioning, every subtle reaction can create effects that continue unfolding beneath conscious awareness, effects that may influence how deeply the brain settles into recovery mode. And once researchers began examining what happens after the signal is triggered, they discovered something that surprised even experienced sleep specialists, because the real impact may not be occurring in the body alone. The more often your body needs to react throughout the night, the harder it becomes for the brain to remain in a stable recovery state. At first, the interruptions may seem insignificant, a small adjustment here, a brief movement there, a momentary shift in position that barely reaches conscious awareness. Nothing dramatic enough to remember the next morning, nothing obvious enough to raise concern. Yet your brain experiences those moments differently than you do. You shift, you adjust, you partially wake. Sometimes the interruption lasts only a few seconds. Sometimes you never become fully aware of it. Sometimes you return to sleep so quickly that it feels like nothing happened at all. But your brain still has to respond, and every response requires energy and attention.
Think about how many times this might occur throughout a single night. Not once, not twice, but potentially over and over again. Each reaction may seem minor in isolation, yet together they create a pattern that can slowly influence the quality of recovery taking place beneath the surface. And most people never realize how often these subtle interruptions occur. This is why some individuals wake up feeling strangely unrested. Technically they slept, technically they spent enough hours in bed, yet something feels different the next day. Their mental clarity isn't quite where they want it to be. Their focus feels slightly reduced, their energy seems less consistent, and they struggle to understand why, because the interruptions themselves remain largely invisible. Over time, these repeated reactions can begin creating a cumulative effect. Sleep may become lighter, deep restorative periods may become shorter, the feeling of waking refreshed may become less predictable. Some people notice more afternoon fatigue, others notice changes in concentration. Others simply describe a feeling that their sleep no longer works the way it once did, and they often assume aging is entirely responsible. But here's where things become even more interesting. Many adults blame age because it feels like the most obvious explanation. And while aging certainly influences sleep in many ways, it may not explain everything. In fact, some of the patterns we've discussed appear to follow a different pathway altogether, a pathway connected to how the body responds throughout the night and how those responses affect the brain's recovery process. And once people understand what may be amplifying that cycle, the entire picture begins to look very different. And this is exactly why some people eventually begin looking beyond traditional sleep advice. Not because they want to force themselves to sleep, not because they want to shut their brain down, and not because they believe something is fundamentally wrong with them. They simply want to understand how to support their body's natural processes more effectively, especially after realizing that repeated nighttime reactions may be influencing their recovery. And once they understand the role of the body flip signal, their perspective often begins to change, because the goal is no longer fighting the symptoms.
Instead, the focus becomes helping the body maintain a more stable environment throughout the night, an environment where fewer signals need to be triggered, an environment where fewer adjustments are necessary, an environment that allows the brain to spend more time in uninterrupted recovery. This approach is very different from trying to overpower the body. It's not about forcing sleep to happen. It's about supporting the conditions that make restorative sleep more likely. And that's an important distinction that many people overlook. Some doctors have started recommending certain forms of natural nighttime support for this reason, not as a cure, not as a shortcut, and certainly not as a replacement for healthy habits, but as an additional way to help the body maintain balance during the night, particularly for adults who experience recurring restlessness, frequent repositioning, and disrupted recovery. The objective is simple: support the systems already working behind the scenes. What's interesting is that these approaches often focus on comfort, relaxation, and overnight stability, not sedation, not suppression, not artificially forcing the body into a sleep state. Instead, the emphasis is placed on helping the body respond less aggressively to minor imbalances, helping it remain calmer, helping it feel more settled, and potentially reducing the frequency of those repeated nighttime reactions. For many people, that idea immediately makes sense because they've already experienced how a small change can influence an entire night of sleep. A different position, a different routine, a different environment. Sometimes the smallest adjustment produces the biggest difference, and that's what led many people to start exploring additional forms of nighttime support. Support designed to work with the body rather than against it. If you're curious about the specific approach that many people have been discussing lately, there's more information available in the pinned comment below. You can take a closer look at the details for yourself. See why it has attracted so much attention among older adults, and learn how it is intended to support the body's natural recovery process. Because once people begin understanding what may be driving the body flip signal, an even bigger question starts to emerge.
a question that may explain why these patterns become so common after the age of 60. If you've experienced these sensations, it doesn't automatically mean something is wrong with you. It doesn't mean your sleep is permanently broken, and it certainly doesn't mean your body is failing. For many people, that assumption creates unnecessary frustration. They begin blaming themselves. They begin worrying that something is seriously wrong, when in reality, the situation may be far more understandable than they realize, and that understanding can change everything. In many cases, your body may actually be trying to help you. The signals we've discussed throughout this video are not necessarily signs of failure. They may be signs of response, signs that your body is continuously monitoring its environment, signs that it is attempting to maintain balance while you sleep. The challenge arises when those signals become too frequent, when the corrections become too active, and when recovery begins getting interrupted as a result. The body flip signal, for example, may start as a useful protective reaction, a way for the body to encourage adjustment, a way to respond to subtle imbalances, a way to maintain comfort and stability during the night. But when the signal appears too often, the consequences can be difficult to ignore. Sleep may feel lighter, recovery may feel incomplete, and mornings may begin feeling very different than they once did. The good news is that patterns like these can often be understood, and when a pattern can be understood, it becomes much easier to address. What once felt random starts making sense. What once felt confusing begins forming a clear picture, and what once seemed impossible to explain suddenly follows a recognizable pattern. That's why awareness matters, because understanding often comes before meaningful improvement. Many people spend years focusing only on the symptoms, the pressure, the restlessness, the repositioning, the unexplained awakenings. Yet the symptoms themselves may simply be clues pointing toward an underlying process occurring beneath the surface, a process that influences how the body and brain interact throughout the night. And once that process is identified, everything begins looking different. But perhaps the most surprising discovery of all is this: the night mismatch may not begin where most people assume it does, and the reason it appears more frequently after the age of 60 may have very little to do with what most people blame. In fact, one overlooked change that occurs as the body ages may quietly influence everything we've discussed tonight: the signals, the reactions, the interruptions. And once you understand what that hidden change is, the entire night mismatch pattern starts making sense in a completely new way.